I say Fox News can't get away with just like pure libel. Okay. Someone said you're going to jail. Yeah. Dog, I didn't even get a fucking phone call from the Secret Service for this because everyone with two working brain cells, even with this quote, can understand that I was talking about the hypocrisy of the Republicans. Okay. Something that I also apologized for as well. This is not like a call to action, a call to assassinate a fucking sitting Republican, okay, an elected. Fox News' digital side is very different from its editorial side, okay? And therefore, they have to show the full quote, which is why, they put the quote within the context. Across X, videos also resurfaced the Pikers using incendiary language to call for bloody massacres of capitalists and Republicans. Yeah, kill them, kill those motherfuckers, and murder those motherfuckers in the streets. The streets soaking in fucking red capitalist blood, dude. Piker said, regarding property owners, can Amazon use some kind of power they have against Trump in the future, kind of like Qatar and Al Jazeera? I don't know. I don't think Amazon knows me all that well. I hope they don't. Isn't this just more McCarthyism? Not just about Palestine, but about any left-leaning beliefs? Yes, this is precisely what it is. And for the longest time, the reason why this kind of counter-narrative and leftist commentary was allowed on U.S. airwaves on the independent side of media, it was obviously not allowed on mainstream discourse all that much with regular frequency, but it was allowed to be on the independent side of news media, was because it did not present an institutional threat. But as tensions keep bubbling up, as a U.S. citizen living in China and the networks he funds, the letter alleges that Singham acts as an agent for the CCP and finances groups that spread disinformation, sow discord, and promote pro-CCP talking points. Citing New York Times and pro-Israel think tank reports, it claims nearly $1.8 million in funding has gone to U.S. leftist organizations, including the Party for Socialism and Liberation, Code Pink, No Cold War, Tricontinental, the People's Forum, Answer Coalition, Palestinian Youth Movement, and Breakthrough Media. If you noticed, every single one of these are groups that I also work with. Okay? The committee wants the Treasury to consider freezing or seizing assets, apply FARA enforcement, and evaluate possible criminal penalties. It frames these groups as radical actors undermining U.S. national security and calls for government action. As I told you, this is precisely what their intention was. And a big part of the reason why they're doing this is because they want to stamp out anti-Israel sentiment. And if you have any opinion on this issue, if you cannot recognize that this is being done at the behest of a foreign government, the foreign government of Israel, and you think there is validity to these claims being made, you are a sucker. You are being duped. The material problems that Americans are experiencing are not solved, and the discontent grows. These guys do not want people to be directed towards wanting to take action in an anti-capitalist direction. They are not fearful of fascism. They are fascists. They are, however, fearful of socialism growing. This is no longer a LARP. This is no longer an accurate assessment of history. This is happening in real time. It feels like you're giving up. What makes you think that I'm giving up? I'm just telling you what I foresee happening, as I have done so for the past decade. As many naysayers and haters of mine, both on the left and right, have said, you're a LARPer. You're not a serious threat. You're not a real radical. I have always tried to moderate my discourse to the best of my ability, but of course, if you're live for fucking 8 hours every single day, 7 days a week, there are always going to be things that you've said that can be manipulated, that can be used against you. And you can cut hours and hours off of shit like that, as a matter of fact. You're a joke. I see myself as one, and I wish the government would see me in a similar vein, because if I was seen as simply a joke, this would not be happening. The thing is, I will not be the first to go. Okay? It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop with people like myself. It's going to expand. And it will one day come to your doorstep as well. Utah cops are giving a presser on the alleged Charlie Kirk shooter, so let's take a look at what they have to say. We're going to Washington County, Utah.
Out there, it was in the court docs. I was trying to protect even that information and just saying retired law enforcement in general. So I get a call from my friend, and his said, "Hey, how you doing?" Good. And it's not, he's been retired a few years. We'll call each other. It's not unusual for me to get a call from him or vice versa. And at 8:02 p.m., he calls me. Hey, I can tell his voice is kind of shaky. So my first thought is, who died? Like who's he going to tell me that died? And then I couldn't fathom what actually came out of his mouth. So he said, "Hey, I know who Charlie Kirk shooter is. I know the family through religious association, and he's in Washington County now, and we're working on trying to get him to come in voluntarily." During that phone call, some information was provided about Tyler potentially having some suicidal ideations, was en route to a remote area of Washington County. The parents convinced him not to do that, and conveyed that they would stand by him and help him surrender peacefully. So at that point, that phone call was 1 minute and 41 seconds. I immediately called Sheriff Mike Smith in Utah County, who I knew was at the incident command in Utah County. So for about 40 seconds, I'm telling Sheriff Smith, "Hey, I'm confident we have the shooter in Washington County. We're working on getting him to come in and surrender at my office." We didn't have him yet, and after about 40 seconds, Sheriff Smith's like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" So he was shocked, as I was, to hear the news, and so I repeated myself. He said, "How credible is it?" I said, "I trust this guy that called me with my life, and I think it's time you need to get your people, the lead investigators, headed to Washington County." Within the hour, my friend drove Tyler and his parents to my office, where he was greeted by plainclothes detectives. So that was part of the deal. Is Tyler knew it was just inevitable with all the law enforcement pressure that his picture in the news, the gun on the news. He knew it was inevitable that he would be caught. He was fearful of a SWAT team hit on his house, or he was fearful of being shot by law enforcement. So part of the negotiation and getting him to bring himself in was that we would treat it as delicate and as soft as possible to make him feel comfortable to where he would show up at my office, and that's exactly what happened. So since we weren't the lead agency, basically it was about a 2.5 hour waiting in a room, not communicating with the suspect. Our job was not to interview. Our job was just to get him here. So after about 2.5 hours, we ended up getting federal agents and state agents in, and some of my detectives were asked to go out into the community and secure 2 locations, so the parents' home and the apartment that Tyler was living in, along with the vehicle that Tyler was likely driving up at UVU. So that's about it.
Sheriff, how would you characterize that former law enforcement friend of yours doing something good here?
Yeah, outstanding. He deserves full credit. I think that a lot of it's just the community relations, right? So Tyler's family trusted this individual. They knew he was involved in law enforcement at some point, and enough community involvement there that they trusted that they could go to this individual and he could contact me directly, and that we could facilitate a peaceful, calm, relaxed surrender, put it that way, right? Make him comfortable for a couple hours, make sure he has water, no communication until the lead investigators arrived. So.
Sheriff, you mentioned you got a call from a retired detective. What went through your mind in that moment when he told you what was about to happen? How did you negotiate with Tyler or his family?
So
what were your first impressions when?
So shock, right? So I like I said, I couldn't imagine the conversation that occurred in that minute and 41-second conversation. But there was negotiation. There was some criteria that needed to be met for him to voluntarily come in, and I agreed to those terms.
What did he ask for? Can I ask?
He basically for a peaceful, gentle, comfortable transition for him to come out. Again, he knew he was going to get caught. He didn't want a big SWAT team hitting his parents' house or his apartment. He was truly fearful of being shot by law enforcement. So that the conditions were as relaxed and comfortable and almost to the point of inviting. And if at the end of the day we accomplish him surrendering peacefully on his own, I'm gonna make some concessions to make that happen.
And what was his mood when you first saw him?
I would describe it as quiet and somber. So not talkative, just no. Go ahead.
There's been reports that this family friend is also potentially a youth pastor or connected to the church. Is that the same person?
No church leadership, just an association through their religious.
Was it somebody in their board, LDS board?
Yeah, I would say that, but not in leadership. Unfortunately, the bishop of that ward has been drug into it because of some of the media reporting. But that's not accurate. That's not accurate.
About the bishop.
Yeah, the bishop wasn't involved in this.
You're not releasing the identity then to the family?
No, absolutely not.
If you can speak to it, did the sheriff's office have any interaction with Tyler Robinson in previous incidents?
I've been asked that a few times, so it's well known, it's in the media. Tyler's apartment was in St. George city limits. The parents' home was in Washington city limits. So since the sheriff's office is primarily patrolling small rural communities, the unincorporated areas of the county, if there were any calls to the residents in St. George City, the highest probability that just St. George City would handle that, not the sheriff's office. So I don't have any data that would support that one way or the other.
Sheriff, have you interviewed his roommate, Robinson's roommate?
No, we're not the lead investigators, so we wouldn't be doing that.
Sheriff, how would you characterize the parents and what you knew that night?
I don't know anything about them.
What did they mention in the phone calls?
No.
Sheriff, how do you feel about the fact that this surrender happened as it was in the police office, at a police station, and kind of was peaceful, inviting as you framed it, and not like a SWAT situation or a big office?
What do you have to say about your friend David?
Right.
Brother, my friend David, I met him one time for approximately 3 seconds. Is there something that happens around the world that you can't find a way to fucking tie back to me somehow? My best friend. Someone who I held near and dear to my heart and soul.
Constant supervision and things like that, but that didn't occur. Yeah, so.
How did you feel about that?
David is a musician.
Versus something else?
Well, obviously it was a big deal. Not only national but international. You're seeing
and there's like a
people
crazy
all over the
update
world
on
for Charlie
the
Kirk.
on the
And,
investigation. They found a
to have that
decomposing
happen,
body in his car. We'll get to that later.
I've had thoughts and heard comments about, this kind of stuff doesn't happen in Utah. Unfortunately it did. But then to have the suspect be a Utah resident who literally went to the same high school I went to. I mean, we're like 30 years apart, but I went to the same high school. He happened to go to the same high school here in Washington County. So it's a double shock factor that one in Utah, and then the suspect happened to be homegrown Washington County boy. So
What time did he get here?
it was just
The
before
one
9
of
p.m.
us narrative. They just keep saying that.
No. Nope. Made sure he had water. Made him comfortable sitting on a couch in an interview room. and just sat on him until the lead investigators came in.
So his parents didn't say anything?
No, not again. That was not our place to ask questions. It was just, we have you here. We're in a holding pattern until the lead investigators get here. So
There's a lot, Unc, like more
that
shit
wouldn't
came out,
be
like so
in
much
our
more about
wheelhouse.
David. No,
We
I
wouldn't
know.
even
I saw some of the
attempted to
updates. It's
interview
crazy.
any of them.
Sheriff, can you provide some more details about this detective in front of you? Was a retired detective? Was he a member of your homicide unit, violent?
He was a detective. He was for many years. He was a detective. So in our agency, our detectives, like some cities, you have detectives just working homicides or just working sex offenses. Ours is all encompassing whatever case comes next, and you have the smaller caseload. You're going to get whatever case that is.
How long has he been out of the force?
About 3 years.
How grateful are you the fact that this ended the way it did and not in a violent outcome?
Oh, very, very, very much. Like I said, concessions were made to make that happen. So if, again, peaceful surrender, make him comfortable. He's accused of a horrific crime. So it's kind of odd to be in that, again, accused of a horrific crime, but then we are treating him very civilly, very humanely, and that's just part of the job. We do that on a regular basis. Try to make people comfortable so they're relaxed and not bombard them with negativity or a hammer fist or stormtrooper type approach. We wouldn't do that.
Sheriff, how many total phone calls were made between you and the retired detective?
There were several follow-up phone calls that night. One was between my command staff and my friend, just them letting me know, hey, he is in the building. We have him in an interview room, and there's been several follow-ups since then. Just me checking in on him, and
All the way from that first call to say we're here, kind of a phone call.
correct.
Prior to him turning himself in, did you guys have any clue that maybe he was in the Washington area?
No, not even a hint. And that was part of the shock factor, right? Is he could have been anywhere. Most people that are involved or accused of things like that, they'd want to get out of the area as soon as possible. So the fact that he came home basically was part of the shock factor, I think.
You said he was afraid of being shot. What did he say exactly? How did he express that?
Just that.
What do you think
Any concern?
the rhetoric
Just
would have
that.
been if the killer was actually
Yeah,
left wing or, God forbid,
he was
not white? I mean,
one of his
you know
fears
what
of
it
being
would have
shot by
been.
the police. Period. That's it.
I'm gonna be honest. It probably would just be more of the rhetoric you have already heard from the right wingers, because they didn't know anything about the shooter and they immediately ran to blame the left, and they're currently taking steps to actively undermine left organizing in this country.
cousin with the last name Robinson. He happens to be an optometrist in town, and his office has been receiving threatening phone calls just because of his last name. So to put somebody in that kind of burdensome situation when they had nothing to do with it, no relation to the family, just think about how the actual individuals involved in this incident are feeling right now.
Are you placing any deputies at their house, outside their house, anything like that?
So that's not our area of patrol, so the cities would handle that. If that request came in, but I don't have any insight there.
Sheriff, can you describe the handoff that occurred from Tyler Robinson to the authorities that came down from the north?
Yeah, they parked in my parking lot. Oh wait, the lead investigators. So by the time they were in town, Tyler was sitting in an interview room with his parents when they arrived. So they were already in this building when the lead investigators arrived.
And how did that handoff go down? Was he handcuffed?
No, he was sitting on a very comfortable couch with a water bottle in his hand, not restrained. He was again cooperative, somber, quiet.
Sheriff, since then, what has this whole ordeal been like for your county and your office?
I've all of a sudden received a lot of media requests. So that's what's changed in my world.
So the parents were in the room, in the interrogation room.
Correct.
What is this?
Correct. That was part of the negotiation to get him here, is that the parents would be with him when he arrived.
Can you explain the last moments that did they hug? Did mom cry?
I don't have any detail on that. I'm sorry.
And he was turned over to FBI or state?
It's a joint investigation between the FBI and the state of Utah primarily. A lot of, I mean, anytime anything this large scale happens, it's all hands on deck. So we're going to need a lot of, just covering the campus and securing the crime scene up north. We've had, active shooter incidents down here recently where every law enforcement wearing every uniform in the county is going to go to those types of scenes.
And just to be clear, he was not handcuffed when he was...
Correct. He was not handcuffed. So.
Did the sheriff's department help secure the perimeter?
Office.
Excuse me, thank you. The office, did you help secure the perimeter or the?
Yes. So since the lead investigators were 3 hours north of us, it took them a while. So that was again, I describe it as an agency assist. We went and just secured the homes. We didn't search the homes. We didn't communicate with anyone within the homes. It was just, we were just locking things down until they arrived.
That was Thursday night.
Yes.
Thursday night.
Yep.
Is the roommate in protective custody? Or?
I don't have any comment on that.
How would you characterize the interactions between the parents, Tyler and Tyler, in the time they were sitting here?
They were together. That was it. I can't point to any emotion or body language or anything to that. They were just with him. So.
Was he recorded in that room?
All of our interactions in that room are recorded.
I know there was some discussion of him being potentially suicidal instead of surrendering when he was in the holding room here. Any concern about that?
No. Okay, we can sit here and stare at each other all day, or we can be done. Good? Okay, thank you. I'm not going to wear these all day because then you'll be spying on me and sneaking on me all day, right?
The officer sounds very Mormon. I mean, he is. All right, well, we didn't really learn anything new from that, but weird energy. I mean, he's a cop, dude. What do you expect? All right, but going back to the suppression, I think I extensively covered it at this point. The Oversight Committee says breaking news: CEO of Discord, Steam, Twitch, and Reddit have been called to testify in front of Congress. They don't actually have to show up. They haven't in the past. But my assessment of the situation, I think, is they'll probably drop me as a sacrificial lamb instead of genuinely trying to push back against this. They're going to throw you under the bus, big bro, for sure. We shall see. Maybe they'll ask Gaben when Half-Life 3 will come out. Sure. Are they asking every social media guy except Twitter? No, the other social media companies that they're demanding show up to this because they're angling this as like radicalization in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination. The other social media platforms are ones that have been mentioned in the investigation, right? Reddit, due to the roommate being on Reddit. Discord, due to the fact that the alleged shooter was on Discord, and Steam as well. Twitch is the only platform that they added on to that, even though it was not mentioned in the investigation whatsoever. There's no evidence that the shooter was on Twitch. He could have been. I mean, he could have been on every single platform, right? But the reason why they are doing that, in my opinion, is because of the reason why they're doing that is because there has been an active deplatforming initiative concocted by not just the right wing, but also people who present themselves as liberals, specifically Destiny and Dan Saltman, working alongside the ADL and numerous other advocacy organizations, doing mass calls to advertisers, as you guys know, mass calls that quite literally had unsubstantiated and false information in it, like active slanderous claims in those spam emails that they blasted out to every single person, every single company, with the hopes of getting their advertisers to pull back from Twitch, creating material pressure against the platform to take action against me. Now, there's obviously there's obviously a level of material harm that any platform will take on in an effort to stand on the principles that they abide by, which is, this is a platform where we're not going to take the initiative to ban certain people that are not in violation of the terms of service. But clearly, if it gets to a level where there's like this much political pressure, then the company Amazon is most likely not going to sit there and defend it. There's a high likelihood that they will succumb and offer people like myself or whoever they demand as a sacrificial lamb. I feel like you get so many articles. Wouldn't there be some sort of uproar about you getting kicked off? Yes, but that doesn't really mean too much. If you recall, there have been certain institutional pressure from organizations that have some semblance of legitimacy that Twitch has caved to, the ADL being one of them, but up to a certain degree. Obviously, a million New York Times op-eds are not going to be able to change the trajectory when the federal government is making these decisions. So we shall see. You say stream on TikTok, but obviously TikTok is also being sold. Every single major independent, every single major quote unquote independent social media platform has been taken over. Anyway, there was also this Theodore Jedediah Cruz.
Yeah, as Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, just said, right now they don't have any evidence of an organization. Obviously, they're still looking into this. But on the bullet casings, I don't remember there being a transgender one on there. I remember him saying there was one that said, if you can read this, you're gay. It was referencing internet memes. But on what you just said there about...
Said that I'm revealing my position. Like, of course, I was supposed to debate the guy, What do you mean? Oh, you didn't actually grieve it in the way that I want you to, okay? This is not, you haven't demonstrated sufficient grief. That's an insane assessment to make. It's just that I think people venerating a person with what I consider to be morally repugnant political ideology is going to have unforeseen secondary consequences as far as normalization of this ideology, Piker said. We're seeing that in every aspect of society already, and this is very frustrating. Though he criticized Kirk, Piker condemned political violence across all publications, telling Politico on Thursday that he never advocated for such a thing and never would. He added that he feared political repercussions in the wake of Kirk's death, though did not elaborate on which side. I think it's pretty obvious what I was talking about, on which side. Okay? The side that political repercussions are going to be coming from is the side that has all control and is enforcing its administrative control over dictating what platforms say and do. He went into more detail with the New York Times on Friday, claiming that Republican lawmakers were taking advantage of the confusion surrounding the shooter's motivation to foment calls for vengeance. But that confusion, I think, is being utilized by many, including people in the positions of power, like the administration and many other prominent Republicans in Congress, to enact some sort of vengeance or political persecution of all political dissidents that have spoken out against either Charlie Kirk or even the Trump administration, Piker says. The New York Times also ran an opinion piece by Piker on Saturday titled, "I was supposed to debate Charlie Kirk. Here's what I would have said." In it, Piker tied Kirk's death to what he described as lax gun laws, civil decline, and social challenges linked to capitalism. The social challenges include rising rents and homelessness, the destruction caused by climate change, titanic levels of inequality, and too many others to name here. Our capitalist way of life, always accumulating, never evening out, leaves more and more people to deal with these problems on their own. And what's interesting about this was that this wasn't just about my assessment on what material circumstances led to Charlie Kirk's assassination. This was about the desensitization that many Americans feel towards unlimited violence that they see. Okay? And many Americans that engage in ultra violence, whether it be school shootings or mass shootings or even gang violence, as Charlie Kirk tried to talk about. Okay? This was a broader context. It wasn't just limited to Charlie Kirk's assassination, of course. In a comment to Fox News Digital, a New York Times spokesperson defended speaking to Piker as a way to better understand Kirk from different perspectives. The Times has published dozens of news articles and opinion pieces about Charlie Kirk after his assassination to help readers better understand him and this social and political era. Kirk and Hassan Piker had debated each other before and were about to do it again. They saw value in talking to each other, and they said they weren't afraid to engage in open debate about issues and ideas, the spokesperson said. That is actually a very good response. That's a shockingly good response from the New York Times to basically say, like, the fuck are you talking about? These two dudes obviously did not have interest in doing violence to one another and wanted to do the spirited debate that you guys claim you want to take place. Fox News Digital also reached out to Vanity Fair and Politico for comment. Piker, who's openly supported communism as an honorable goal in the past, has a history of using violent language to stream against political opponents. Earlier this year, Piker apologized after being suspended from Twitch for urging people to kill Senator Rick Scott while on stream. Republicans are not tackling providers. They're not actually going after false billing. They are trying to cut recipients. Fraud is not happening at the point of the recipient. If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott, he said. Now, this is what I mean when you choose not to rent out empty homes. Okay. Once again, a quote from 2018, where I was talking to, at the time, a friend of mine who is no longer a friend of mine, who is a landlord himself, and I was LARPing. This is not a sincere policy demand. This is not something that I advocate for. And if it was something that I sincerely advocated for, I suspect there would be more to it than just a 10-second clip from 2018. Anyway, nobody else knows about the Oompaville thing. Hassan, you should watch the new Oompaville vid. Dude, please stop. Yeah, I say in a video game, but that doesn't matter. It's like obviously not a sincere position that I hold regardless, okay? It's fucking so stupid. Left-wingers, liberals, you need to be fucking showing your opponent's guts on there. You need to be gutting them, Piker said in a video, presumably following the 2022 Georgia Senate debate. Okay? Yeah. Left-wingers need to be more cutthroat. Liberals need to be more cutthroat in a debate. Wow, I can't believe he means, like, he wants Nancy Pelosi to fucking cut someone's throat. What are we talking about? It's very obviously a fucking metaphor. Okay? In any case, they still at least add the context to a certain degree. Okay? At least they add context to a certain degree, but that's not enough for people to run along with it and to go crazy over it. Okay? So, this is the best day they got, and it's really fucking silly and really stupid. But one thing I will say is the commentary surrounding Tom Tillis receiving death threats was obviously so fucking stupid that even Fox News didn't put it in the compilation. Okay? Because it's so obvious that I'm reporting in that moment about like the discontent and anger that people fucking feel when they run out of options. It is a very important part of my criticism in general. It's one that I actually reflected on in the New York Times op-ed as well. So even the fact that even Fox News was like, yeah, that one's like a little too silly. They just moved on from it. Did they reach out? I'm sure they did. I don't usually respond to comments for stuff like this. Fox News Digital reached out to Piker for a comment, but did not immediately receive a response. I can't imagine this is going to be a story a month from now. Right wingers have the attention span of infantile goldfish. I feel like the masses won't care about a meeting on political radicalization on social media. It'll be just roaches of the world. Yes. But I do think that this is a part of a broader initiative. And therefore, it is up to the administration. If they actually push for it more aggressively, it will become a bigger problem down the line. Now, here's the thing. Okay? I need you to understand something. It doesn't even feel like Trump has his heart in this. Okay? It doesn't even feel like Trump has it in him to make this a broader issue, considering that he skipped the vigil, and every single time they ask him, because he's such a self-important, narcissistic madman, he literally doesn't think he's involved enough in the story, so he just moves on to the fucking ballroom. Or you find him doing dances at the Yankee Stadium on the night of 9/11, only a day after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. It's very obvious that he doesn't give a shit about this beyond the fact that Steve Miller and J.D. Vance want to use this as an opportunity to prosecute all political dissidents and erode the First Amendment. That's it. So his heart is not even in it. And Stephen Miller and J.D. Vance are not necessarily as popular as Donald Trump. So clearly, this is, it's up for debate exactly how successful this initiative will be. Previous hearings have been a pretext for boosting a right-wing algorithm. Exactly. Every single one of these previous hearings have always been around how the right is suppressed. And it's interesting because it's funny. I debated Charlie on this issue as well. The notion that like these social media platforms are woke. Back in 2016, that was all the rage. That's what people used to say all the time. And they used to say that even though Ben Shapiro and numerous other right-wingers were dominating these platforms, and they just still kept saying that. They designed a media narrative that the right was constantly being undermined by these supposedly woke, transgender, DEI, Antifa social media platforms. Like, I'll give you one example. Facebook used to be public enemy number one for Republicans, right? When are you getting banned for fuck's sake? Oh my God. Chatter. I need you to understand something, and I don't think you ever will. You don't have to watch me. Okay? You do not have to watch me. I don't know why people put themselves through this experience. Okay? And if you are putting yourself through this experience, why don't you at the very least see if you can, as a game, okay, see if you can pick up on some of the things that I'm talking about here where you can find an area of agreement. Just a game for you, okay? I know you have it in you. I know you can make up your own mind, okay? It just doesn't make any sense. I don't agree with everything you say, but I think it's important to hear and make a decision on my own. Thank God. I can't believe that's like the bare minimum that I expect from people, and it's just so sad that people can't even do that. They're just like, nope, don't care, not doing that. I have already been primed into fucking hating you. And the anger and resentment that I have in my heart and my soul from all these other fucking content creators who have positioned themselves as antagonistic to your worldview is so powerful that I can't even make up my own fucking mind here. Okay? That's it. Make up your own mind, man. You're an adult. I'm in here. I'm accessible. And it's not something that my position, I'm very stubborn. My position is not something that I shelter people from. I just openly will say exactly how I mean, exactly how I feel. I think everyone has biases, okay? Myself included. And I think it's more honest to openly state what your biases are. Do you understand? I think it's infinitely more honest to say, I'm looking at this objectively. I'm looking at the actual data. I'm looking at the actual facts. Having said that, this is my position, right? A lot of people don't do that. And so many people have been farmed by individuals that present themselves as apolitical, right? People who basically say, oh, I'm apolitical. I'm actually looking at this completely from an unbiased perspective. They betray the truth by not revealing their position. Some do it to become better propagandists, and others do it because they're fearful that you will find out what their position is and you will no longer watch them. Michael Jordan talked about this when he said Republicans buy sneakers too. There are a lot of content creators online who are terrified of revealing their political perspective, both on the left and on the right, for a bunch of different reasons. I'm not one of those people. Not gonna lie, I used to hate you, but I've come around after your stance on Palestine, and now the hypocrisy of right-wingers who are trying to cancel you is sickening. I am a firm and committed believer that if you spend enough time in this chat, if you actually came here with an open mind, you will realize that you most likely have been duped. You most likely have been lied to about what I believe and what I don't believe. And that's the reason why you have this kind of resentment. That's why there are so many people. That's why this community keeps growing in spite of the endless amounts of smears. Okay? The reason why is because people, for every 1,000 people, that see a clip out of context and like outrage farming coming from supposedly apolitical vessels online, there are 100 people that go, you know what, I'm going to tune in and check it out on my own. Okay? Now, of course, there are content creators that have made it their life's mission to actively come after me. And for some of them, it's political. Some of them, it's an ideological disagreement, whether it be the reality that they want to defend Israel and feel bad, and they can't cope with that after developing a progressive audience, or whether it be because they were purely spite motivated and spite driven because they feel as though I never deserved the position I got to. Okay? It's very stupid. For some, it's just engagement farming, and that's it. I thought you spent the entire stream shouting at chatters before I started watching because that's all I'd seen in clips. Yeah. In any case, let's get back to the situation at hand. Megyn Kelly breaks down the controversy surrounding Candace Owens, Bill Ackman, Israel, and Charlie Kirk. Tucker Carlson also had some statements that he made last night. A lot of people who are anti-Israel are coming out to say Charlie Kirk was also secretly moving in the direction of being anti-Israel. Okay? Now, I don't know the veracity of these claims. Do I believe that Charlie Kirk was annoyed by all of the pro-Israel advocates that were major donors to his organization? Absolutely. Do I believe that Charlie Kirk recognized that the landscape was shifting underneath his feet, especially as it pertains to Gen Z right-winger opinions on Israel, and he was trying to desperately manage that back and forth by highlighting anti-Israel Republicans such as Tucker Carlson or anti-Israel libertarians such as Dave Smith? Absolutely. Do I believe that the gray zone reporting is correct, especially as it pertains to how angry Zionist advocacy organizations got when they saw Charlie Kirk even offer any talking time to the likes of Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith, even if it was, from Charlie's own estimation, for the greater good from his perspective, right? The idea that like there is ideological diversity within the right. That's a good thing for the right project, okay? For the right movement, for the conservative movement in this country. But he was very frustrated because he was a firm and committed supporter of Israel. That much is clear. Okay? He was always a firm and committed supporter of Israel. No, he did not say they were ethnically cleansing Gaza. He said the famine was fake. He said the genocide is fake. He has always been antagonistic to the pro-Palestinian position. He said Palestine is not real. He's made jokes about how I used to often say, if you, to gay people, like if you were gay in Palestine, Hamas would throw you off a roof. Well, there are no roofs in Gaza anymore because those stupid Muslims decided to fuck with the Jews. So I know he said Israel's intentions were to ethnically cleanse, to try and ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip. That was immediately after October 7, and that was on the Patrick Bet-David show. Please. He said it to Patrick Bet-David, and I think he said it early on in 2023. His position after that was pretty obvious. You can recognize that Israel was going to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip and also simultaneously think that is a good thing. Okay? Anyway, all of these things can be true at the same time. Charlie Kirk could have been incredibly annoyed for very good reason with the envoys of Israel that were donors of his that were demanding complete fealty in return for their investment. This is stuff that one could expect just by having one conversation or just by encountering one conversation with a pro-Israel person. Okay? The fucking sheer arrogance, the sheer sense of entitlement, and demands for unconditional loyalty partnered up with the how dare yous, you are Hamas and you are anti-Semitic, is instant. Okay? It's instant. So all of those things are most likely true. Okay? The example I will use is of Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton and George W. Bush despised, on the record, despised Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel in general, like Israeli politicians in general. And yet, they obviously kept up the unconditional loyalty and support to Israel. So the notion that these people fucking hate how annoying Israeli envoys are is still true, just like what their actions in the direction of unlimited loyalty to Israel is also true. Okay? Having said that, I find myself in this unique predicament where, on the one hand, I think that it's not totally and utterly insane to assume that Israel would engage in a high-profile assassination on U.S. soil even, okay? Like, that much is true. Israel has done increasingly more ridiculous things, okay? They have no care or consideration for international law or they feel unstoppable, right? And they are desperate right now because they are a global pariah. But even then, the thing that I take issue with is the notion that Charlie Kirk was getting cold feet on his support for Israel and was going to publicly turn on Israel. And that was going to create a faucet of anti-Israel sentiment amongst the Gen Z right. The reason why I take issue with that is twofold. One, Charlie Kirk does not command the attention of the Gen Z right in the ways that you think he does. He is not capable of hypnotizing them. Okay? And perhaps even more important than that is that Charlie Kirk was not going to sidestep the Trump administration. That is the most consequential aspect of this speculation. The notion that Charlie Kirk was going to sidestep Israel or go against Israel publicly is silly. And the reason why it's silly is because Charlie Kirk was not going to go against Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is the number one dick rider of Israel. Maybe number two after Joe Biden. Okay? There was no way that Charlie Kirk was going to come out and actively go against, no matter how much he hated or despised, Israel's advocates that are close associates of his. He was never going to go against Donald Trump. And the evidence for that is Jeffrey Epstein. Charlie Kirk made a major deal out of Jeffrey Epstein leading up to the election and certainly after the election. And once the Jeffrey Epstein story put the crosshairs on Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk talked personally to Donald Trump and openly explained to his audience that he had gotten a boss call from Donald Trump and he was no longer going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. So while Charlie Kirk, when talking to Megyn Kelly, for example, openly expressed his frustration with the pro-Israel donors that were smearing him as an anti-Semite, there is still no evidence that he would have turned on Israel publicly because Donald Trump is not turning on Israel publicly. Okay? So there is totally a world where Charlie Kirk was trying to keep the loyalty of the anti-Israel right in an effort not to lose all of that audience to the likes of Nick Fuentes, someone he avoided deliberately, right? And in an effort to do so, he brought Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith on to Turning Point USA Conference. He brought Marjorie Taylor Greene on, or said he wanted to bring Marjorie Taylor Greene on. And this caused major panic amongst pro-Israel advocates. All of this is real, okay? And it's not even hidden because there were articles written about the discontent that they felt with Charlie Kirk in the aftermath of allowing these conversations to take place. There were Jewish publications, there were Israeli publications that wrote about Charlie Kirk and how menacing it was and how dangerous this was. Laura Loomer is a great example of this as well. Laura Loomer, who famously, a couple days prior to Charlie Kirk's assassination, put out a tweet saying Charlie Kirk is betraying MAGA. Charlie Kirk is betraying the movement and betraying Donald Trump after Donald Trump gave him a platform. All of that came very publicly in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk even allowing Tucker Carlson to speak. Okay? Do you understand? But once again, as Sina Tusi also points to, what's striking isn't the conspiracies, it's the scale. Candace Owens' video on Charlie Kirk and Israel from yesterday has 7+ million views. Forget the Beltway or legacy media. The grassroots conservative base is openly fracturing on Israel in a way unimaginable even a few months ago. Okay? They are lying about Charlie Kirk, and they're using this, like Candace Owens, Matt Gaetz, Tucker Carlson, and numerous other content creators, numerous other commentators, high-profile commentators that have a lot of influence, who have their ear to the ground, who obviously have to respond to the animosity that the base feels, are riding the anti-Israel sentiment. So much so that this is actually shifting the administration's priorities, in my opinion, away from the Trantifa shooter narratives back to having to deal with how this wasn't an Israeli operation that assassinated Charlie Kirk at all. Okay? Tucker Carlson said that Charlie Kirk told him at TPUSA Student Action Summit last July to highlight Epstein's connections to Mossad. Distinguishing between Netanyahu and the state of Israel, Carlson claimed that Kirk hated Netanyahu and his war against Gaza despite loving Israel. Roger Stone also confirmed it, as so did Matt Gaetz. I have personal knowledge as to many of the claims Tucker is making here. They are 100% true. Roger Stone says, I have personal firsthand knowledge that everything Matt Gaetz and Tucker Carlson are saying is true because Charlie Kirk told me. Charlie was both a public and private advocate for my clemency when I was framed in the Russian collusion hoax. We became close, and he provided me with spiritual advice during a crucial time in my life. I believe the questions surrounding his death remain unsolved. Mike Cernovich says, after what Megyn Kelly said, now what? Going to call her mentally ill too? Say she's using a death for clout? Call her obsessed? Now what? Propaganda bots. What we are seeing is truly a seismic shift amongst the right. Those who are close to the administration that obviously have to demonstrate unlimited loyalty to Trump and therefore unlimited loyalty to Israel. Those who also personally love Israel, okay, are saying all of these claims are fabricated. They're made up. Okay? The truth in this situation is somewhere in the middle. But it is obvious to me that the administration people are actually losing the information war. Do you understand? And the reason why the administration people are losing the information war, like Laura Loomer or Ted Cruz or any number of different people, is because Israel and Israel's opinion, the public opinion on Israel, is lower than dirt. It's shit from the butt. Okay? It's fucking over. You can do as many polls as you want. You can conduct as many polls as you want, but it is ridiculous to assume that things have not shifted in a dramatic fashion. The things that I am seeing in the aftermath of a political assassination of a high-profile figure that they're hailing as Martin Luther King Jr., but for white folk, I never would have expected from the right. I never, ever in a million years would have expected this kind of narrative framing from the right when the opportunity presented itself for them to perfectly capture the attention and go along with the administration's wishes and never bring up Israel whatsoever, and instead focus on the Trantifa narratives. Okay? But once again, what's interesting about this is, and I want to know if there is, does anyone have the old Laura Loomer post? They keep presenting it. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I don't ever want to hear Charlie Kirk claim he's pro-Trump ever again. After this weekend, I'd say he has revealed himself as political opportunist, and I have had a front row seat to witness the mental gymnastics these last 10 years. Lately, Charlie has decided to behave like a charlatan, claiming to be pro-Trump one day while he stabs Trump in the backs the next. TPUSA was only able to thrive thanks to the generosity of President Trump. She said this after the Turning Point USA conference had a bunch of high-profile speakers, such as Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith, that were able to speak out against the state of Israel and its genocide. Okay? So the discontent from the pro-Israel MAGA side wasn't even hidden. Laura Loomer is, unfortunately, a moral compass for this administration. It sounds insane to present someone who once famously got banned off of every application, including the goddamn weather app, basically, for being so Islamophobic. A person who tried to start an ISIS fan club at her college campus and got expelled for doing so. That person has the administration's ear. Okay? That person has the administration's ear. She's been able to successfully revoke visas, for example. So, looking to Laura Loomer at times like this is because she is so, because she's so crazy and has no has no interest in like stopping herself from coming across as demented. She'll just openly reveal her position and the position of many others. Okay. Laura Loomer has been able to successfully get a bunch of federal people fired. Laura Loomer was able to get Marco Rubio to revoke medical visas to Palestinians that were paid for, their travel and their medical expenses that were paid for through charitable contributions, even including people in this community, as a matter of fact. Our contributions helped transport people from Gaza to the United States of America to get medical aid. Laura Loomer was able to stop that process. So just remember that. Just simply saying she's loony, Laura Looney, betrays the amount of influence that she has over the administration. But yes, let's see what Tucker Carlson had to say, and then we'll see what Ted Cruz had to respond to it with.
He did not like Bibi Netanyahu, and he said that to me many times, and he said it to people around him many times. He felt that Bibi Netanyahu was a very destructive force. He was appalled by what was happening in Gaza. He was, above all, resentful that he believed Netanyahu was using the United States to prosecute his wars for the benefit of his country, and that it was shameful and embarrassing and bad for the United States, and he resented it. Didn't hate Netanyahu. He wasn't out there with a placard saying that, but he certainly expressed that to me and a lot of other people. And there's no question that Bibi's defenders on the internet will call me a liar or a kook, but that's a fact. And enough text messages exist that I think it can probably be verified in pretty short order. Not that it needs to be, because that is true. Shortly after that speech, there was a very intense attack on Charlie, and to some extent on me, not that I really noticed. But on him, I have no donors. He had $100 million worth of donors. And so, because he was involved in a different project from just yapping on the internet, which is what I do for a living, he was dependent to a great extent on his donors, of course. It's a nonprofit. And they went after him and tormented him. Not all, of course. Many were supportive, but the ones who were offended by my speech, and there was a small, very intense group who were, tormented Charlie Kirk until the day he died.
Ted Cruz responded to this and said, "I'm getting really tired of Tucker and his cronies falsely claiming Charlie agreed with me that Israel's a terrible and the problem in America is all the damn Jews. I knew Charlie well, and indeed, the very last conversation we had was how deeply concerned he was about the rising toxic wave of anti-Semitism on the right." You want to know something crazy? I believe that too. Okay? Because in many respects, And I think this is because I understand Charlie Kirk's position and the Turning Point USA's position on this. He was seeing himself as the connective tissue that would hold together all of the different right flanks, including anti-Israel right-wingers and pro-Israel right-wingers. So this actually corresponds to much older conversations that I had in private with Charlie Kirk, all the way from 2017. Not sure if he actually had changed his perspective or not on this stuff, but like there was a time and place where it was very obvious that he was worried about Nick Fuentes gaining prominence. Okay? Now, do I think that this was because he was like a person who deeply resented anti-Semitism? No, fuck no. Okay? It was because he understood the importance of maintaining some pro-Israel support at a time when the attitude was shifting. So when he had this conversation with Ted Cruz, I'm certain that this was a genuine concern, but it wasn't a genuine concern about like anti-Semitism. It was a genuine concern about the like losing out market share to the likes of Nick Fuentes. Do you understand? It was about losing the conversation completely to anti-Israel forces. Is this right-wing sectarianism? Lamau Charlie is the prophet. It's crazy how much contention there is around Kirk's worldview and standing, considering it's very thoroughly documented. It feels like a bunch of people competing to absorb his audience and evoking his legacy to legitimize their own perspective. Absolutely. You are 100% correct. That's precisely the reason why Nick Fuentes, who is the greatest example of this, went from pursuing Charlie, hunting Charlie, all the way down to now celebrating his life and his accomplishments and talking about how much he actually respected him and how much he revered him. It's all for market share. It's also partially the reason why Nick Fuentes, I believe, is not even entertaining the narratives that Israel was somehow responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk, because that kind of misinformation, especially for like any kind of misinformation that you could somehow tie back to Jews that has any sort of fucking relevance in the broader audiences, will always be weaponized by anti-Semites. So it's shocking. It's shocking that he's not using this right now. You know what I mean? Not to say the suspicions of Charlie Kirk's assassination being brought back to Israel would be always anti-Semitic, of course. That's not even what I'm saying. Okay? The reason why he is desperately trying to move the attention back to the left is because he understands that he has a real opportunity. He has a real opportunity to try to eat away at Charlie Kirk's market share and become the new face of the Gen Z. Forgive me for being a bit tired of the right will succumb to soon to infighting narrative after like half a dozen tries over the past few years. You usually don't follow that narrative. What has changed here? I don't believe the right is going to succumb to infighting on this issue. Because in order for them to succumb to infighting on this issue, they would have to be sincere and committed to an anti-Zionist position. For many people on the right, I would say their sincere anti-Israel position oftentimes comes from anti-Semitism. For many others, their anti-Israel position is simply a response to the market moving on and anti-Israel sentiments growing. It's a way to capture market share. It's a cynical way to do it. It's a self-interested way of doing it. Okay? And if there is no real, genuine, firm commitment to anti-Zionism, okay, and anti-Israel sentiment, they'll just discard it in a moment's notice by this authoritarian government. That's it. I hope people understand exactly what is going on here. Okay? I hope people understand that it's not just me either. House Republicans urge Treasury to investigate Code Pink, Palestinian Youth Movement, Breakthrough Media, and other anti-genocide left-wing orgs. House Oversight Chair James Comer and Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and by the way, neither of these guys are very serious people on the right. It would be far more consequential if it was like Tom Cotton, for example, that's pushing for this sort of thing. Those guys have a lot more institutional motion within the Republican Party. James Comer and Representative Anna Paulina Luna are not seen as like super serious individuals on the Republican side, just like Richie Torres on the Democrat side is like not really a serious person, right? Having said that, it's entirely in the hands of the Trump administration and how much they entertain this. They sent a 5-page letter to the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent asking for a formal review of Neville Roy Singham, a